Hi and welcome to English Odyssey. Are you learning English? Great, let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like and comment. Let's get started. Death is one of the biggest questions for people. It is a great mystery. What happens when we die? Nobody knows the full answer for sure. For a long time, people thought death was a simple thing like a light turning off. But science is now showing us that dying is not simple. It is a complex process that happens over time. Scientists are studying what happens to the body and the brain when life ends. They are finding surprising things. Our body changes step by step after the heart stops. The brain also seems to have activity in the last moments of life. This new science is helping us understand more. This book will take a journey to look at death. We will look at what science tells us about the body and the brain when someone is dying. We will also read personal stories from people who were close to death. Some people have experiences like seeing a light or meeting family who have died. These are called near-death experiences. We will also explore different ideas about death from around the world. Different groups of people have different beliefs. Some believe in life after death and some do not. We will see how these beliefs help people think about dying. We will also talk about feelings. Dying is hard for the person and for their family. We will look at how people feel when they are dying and how loved ones feel after someone dies. Grief is a powerful feeling. Thinking about death is also something smart people have done for a long time. We will look at some big ideas about what death means for life. Does death make life more important? This book is a look at all these parts: science, personal stories, beliefs, and feelings. It is a way to try and understand what happens when we come to the end of life. It is a journey into the mystery of death, to the body at the end. When a person dies, the first main thing that happens is the heart stops beating. This event is called cardiac arrest. With the heart no longer pumping, blood stops moving around the body. This has a big effect. All the cells in the body need oxygen from the blood to live and work. Without blood flow, the cells quickly lose their oxygen supply. When cells do not get oxygen, they cannot work right. They start to break down from the inside. This process begins within minutes after the heart stops. It affects all parts of the body, but some cells, like brain cells, are harmed very fast by lack of oxygen. Soon after death, some physical changes are seen. The body starts to cool down to the temperature of the area around it. This cooling is called a law mortis. Also, blood settles in the parts of the body that are lowest due to gravity. This makes the skin look a different color, often reddish-purple. This is known as rigor mortis. Muscles also become stiff. This is called rigor mortis. It usually starts within a few hours, often 2 to 6 hours after death. The body becomes most stiff about 12 hours after death. The stiffness lasts for a day or two and then goes away. Over longer periods, the body changes more. Small living things like bacteria already in the body start to grow quickly because the body's defenses are gone. These bacteria help break down the body's tissues. This process creates gases which can make the body swell up. This swelling stage might start about 4 to 10 days after death. After the swelling, the body continues to break down more actively. Soft tissues become liquid and disappear. This stage of active decay can last for several weeks, perhaps 10 to 25 days. In the end, only the most lasting parts like bones may remain. This final stage can take many months or even years depending on the environment. These steps show that the end of life is not a single sudden stop for the body. It is a series of natural changes that follow after the heart stops its work. Understanding these changes helps science and doctors understand the physical side of dying. 3. The brain's last activity. People often imagine that when a person dies and the heart stops beating, the brain also stops working immediately. The old idea was that it was like turning off a light switch. Everything just goes dark and quiet. But new scientific research is changing this idea. The brain does not just shut down right away. It stays active for a period of time after the heart stops beating. This finding is very surprising and important for scientists who study life and death. Researchers today are looking closely at what happens inside the brain during the dying process. They are using special tools to measure the brain's electrical work. These studies have shown amazing things about the brain's final moments of activity. One of the leading scientists in this field is Dr. Gimo Bergen. Her work has made significant discoveries about the dying brain. Dr. Bergen and her research team have seen strong patterns of brain activity in patients right after their hearts stopped pumping blood. They found moments with intense electrical signals in the brain. These signals were very fast, high-frequency waves. One specific type of these fast waves is known as gamma waves. Gamma waves are interesting to scientists because they are usually connected to states of consciousness like being awake, thinking clearly, and having important memories. The studies showed that these gamma waves were not just present, they were very powerful in the brain as it was dying. What is also important is that the activity was not just messy or random signals. The brain's activity looked very organized. It seemed that different parts of the brain were communicating with each other in a structured way, almost like they were working together. In certain specific areas of the brain, the level of these electrical signals became much higher than it was when the person was stable before the heart stopped. In some cases, the strength of the signals was more than 10 times greater. This made it look like the brain was incredibly busy. This period of strong, organized brain activity seems to happen within the first few minutes after the heart stops pumping and the brain loses its supply of oxygen. Before this research, many thought the brain would just become silent very quickly because it needs oxygen to work, but this suggests the brain has a final active performance before it stops completely. Scientists are still trying hard to understand exactly why the brain does this in its last moments. Is this activity a final effort of the brain trying to keep going? Could this activity be connected to the vivid experiences that some people describe when they are saved after their heart stops and come back to life? These questions are part of the mystery that researchers are still working to solve. However, one clear message from this research is that the end of life is not a simple sudden stop for the brain. It is a process that includes a period of surprising and intense activity. This new understanding helps us see that death is much more complex than many people used to believe. The brain's last work is not silence. It is an active moment, foreseeing a light. Many people who come very close to death and then live have special experiences. We call these near-death experiences or NDEs. They happen to about 1 or 2 people out of every 10 who survive after their heart stops. People around the world, perhaps hundreds of millions, have said they had an NDE. People describe many similar things during an NDE. Some say they float above their body and watch doctors work. Others feel like they are moving through a long, dark place like a tunnel. At the end of the tunnel, they see a bright, warm light. People often feel great peace or love. Sometimes people meet others who have already died, like family members or friends. They might feel like they are going to another world. For many, the experience feels very real, maybe even more real than everyday life. One story is about a boy named Francis Desky. When he was 13 years old, he had a difficult surgery. During the surgery, he felt like he left his body. He saw himself below on the operating table. Then he felt himself moving through space and time. He met bright, light-filled beings, including his grandmother who had passed away. This experience changed him greatly. He felt a strong sense of love and peace. Scientists study these experiences. They want to understand why they happen. Some people think NDEs show that consciousness or a soul can leave the body. They think it is proof of life after death. They look for times when people saw things they could not have seen if they were unconscious. But most scientists think NDEs are caused by what happens in the brain when it is dying. They look at the brain's activity in the final moments. Research shows that the brain is very active just after the heart stops. It does not just turn off. This strong brain activity could create the strange and vivid experiences people have. Scientists say there is no strong proof that consciousness is truly separate from the brain during an NDE. They think the bright lights, feelings of peace, and meeting people are part of the brain's final actions. The mystery of NDEs is still a big question. Are they a peek into another world, or are they the amazing final moments of the brain? Science continues to look for answers, studying both the stories people tell and the activity in the dying brain. 5 ideas of death. People all over the world have different ideas about death. Our culture and beliefs shape how we think about dying. For many centuries, humans have wondered what happens when life ends. These thoughts become part of our traditions and understanding. In many Western countries, like those with Christian roots, death is often seen as a step to another life. The idea is that after death, a person goes to a place called an afterlife. This is sometimes linked to ideas of judgment or reward based on how they lived their life. This is a simple one-way view of death, but in other parts of the world, the ideas are very different. For example, in Hinduism and Buddhism, death is not an end. It is seen as part of a cycle. When a person dies, their soul or spirit might be born again into a new body. This idea is called rebirth or reincarnation. The good or bad things a person did in life, called karma, can affect what happens in their next life. Ancient thinkers also thought deeply about death. Some ancient Greek thinkers like Epicurus said we should not fear death. They said that when we are alive, death is not here. And when death is here, we are no longer alive to feel anything. So according to this idea, death is nothing for us. Many native cultures also have special views on death. Some see dying as returning to the earth. Others believe the people who died still have a connection to the living world. They might feel that their ancestors are still part of their lives in some way. Even in modern times, people who do not follow a religion have different thoughts. Some think death is just the end of the body, like a light turning off. But they might believe that a person's life still has meaning through the memories they leave behind or the good things they did for others. All these different beliefs show that death is understood in many ways. These ideas help people understand dying and feel less afraid of what happens when life ends. They give comfort and meaning to a difficult part of life. 6. How we feel. When people are close to dying, they often have strong emotions. A doctor named Elizabeth Kubler-Ross helped us understand this. She described 5 feelings or stages that people might feel. First, people might feel denial. They might think, no, this is not happening to me. This helps them slowly understand the big news. Second, they might feel anger. They could be angry at why this is happening or at doctors or family. Third, they might try bargaining. This is like making a deal perhaps with God or a higher power, saying if I can live longer I will be a better person. They hope to change the outcome. Fourth, they might feel depression. This is deep sadness. They feel sad about losing their life and everything they love. Fifth, they might reach acceptance. This is a calmer stage. They accept that death is near. It is not being happy but being okay with the reality. It is important to know that these stages do not happen for everyone and they can happen in a different order, or people might go back and forth between them. When a person dies, the family and friends who are still alive feel grief. Grief is a very strong and personal feeling. It is different for everyone. There is no right way to grieve. It takes time and the time is different for each person. How a person grieves depends on many things like their relationship with the person who died, how the death happened, and their culture. Scientists are studying how grief affects our minds and feelings. They are learning that grief can change things in our brain. A scientist named Mary Frances O'Connor has done research on this. She found that grief can make parts of the brain active in ways similar to when a person is feeling an addiction. This helps explain why people who are grieving often feel pulled to remember the person they lost, and why it can feel very difficult to let go of them or the past. It is also hard for children to understand death and grief. How they understand it changes as they grow up. For young children, death might seem like being asleep or going away for a short time. They might not know it is permanent. As children get older, they start to ask bigger questions about what death is. Dealing with death, both for the person dying and the people left behind, is one of the hardest things we experience. These feelings of denial, anger, sadness, and finally sometimes acceptance are normal parts of this difficult process. Grief is a long journey with many different feelings. Understanding these feelings can help us support each other through loss. 7 big questions about life. For a very long time, people have asked big questions about life and death. These questions are some of the biggest humans think about. Wise thinkers called philosophers have spent much time trying to understand what death means for us and for life itself. Some thinkers from ancient times believed that death was a natural part of life and nothing to be afraid of. One famous Greek philosopher taught that we should accept death. He said fear comes from wanting things we cannot control. Since we cannot control death, we should accept it and live well in the time we have. Another ancient thinker had a simple idea. When we are alive, death is not present. When death comes, we are not present, so death is never something we experience directly. This idea was meant to remove the fear of dying. Other ancient ideas suggested death was like a peaceful sleep or a move to a different place, so it was not something bad. These ways of thinking helped people in ancient times feel less scared about the end of life. In more recent times, some philosophers looked at death and life together in a new way. They thought that knowing we will die is actually very important for understanding life's value. They said that because life is limited, every moment and every choice becomes special. Thinking about our own death, they argued, can make us see clearly what is truly important and what is not. It pushes us to live in a way that feels real and meaningful to us. This view suggests that death doesn't take away life's meaning. It helps create it by making life finite and precious. These discussions about death lead us to think about life's value. What makes one life good? Does living for many years mean a better life than a short one? Does the value of our life depend on what we do or just on being alive? And what happens to the value of our life or our thoughts and feelings after we die? These are very big and difficult questions. There are many different answers depending on a person's beliefs, culture, and experiences. These important questions are not just for philosophers in books. They are important for everyone, every day. They influence how we choose to live, what we try to achieve, and how we treat others. They also become very important in difficult times, like when doctors and families have to make decisions about care for someone who is dying. Our personal ideas and beliefs about death can change everything about how we see the end of life and how we live before it. Understanding different ideas about death, like the ones from science or different beliefs, helps us think about these deep questions. It helps us see that life is complex, valuable, and worth living. Even though death remains a big mystery in many ways, asking these questions about life in the face of death can help us find our own meaning and purpose. 8. The future and the end. We have traveled through a journey to understand death. We looked at what happens when the body stops working. We saw the changes the body goes through. We also looked closely at the brain. Scientists found that the brain can be very active right after the heart stops. Special brain waves appear. This activity might explain why some people have strange and strong experiences when they almost die. These are called near-death experiences. People sometimes see a bright light or feel like they leave their body. We also thought about different ideas about death from different places and times. Some beliefs talk about life after death, others about coming back to life in a new body. We also talked about the feelings people have when they are dying or when someone is gone. It is a time with many different emotions like sadness or even peace. And we thought about what wise thinkers called philosophers say about death and what it means for our lives. New science is now changing how we see dying. Doctors and scientists are learning more about the brain during its last moments. This helps them think about how to help people better, especially in hospitals. For example, knowing the brain is active might change how doctors try to bring people back to life after their heart stops. It also makes people think about things like giving organs for others. If the brain is active, it makes people ask important questions about when life truly ends and what the person might be feeling. This new knowledge also helps care for people who are dying. Nurses and doctors can use this understanding to give better support. They know the last moments might be important even if the person cannot speak or move. It can help families too to know that maybe the person is not just gone right away. Even with all this new information, death is still one of life's biggest puzzles. Science helps us understand the physical parts. It tells us how the body and brain change, but it does not fully answer what happens to a person's thoughts or feelings, or if something continues after the body stops. We know much more now than people in the past. We know that dying is not just like turning off a simple switch. It is a complex process. This journey has shown that the end of life might be more amazing and meaningful than we thought. The activity in the brain, the stories people tell, and the old ideas from history all point to something more than just stopping. Thinking about death can also help us live better. Now it reminds us that life is special and has an end. This can help us think about what is most important in our lives. Death remains a mystery we are still exploring. We use science, stories, beliefs, and deep thinking to try and understand it. This book has shared some of these ideas. What part of the story about death do you find most interesting or mysterious? Hey there, just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.